This is Motovation. I'm Lori Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Chrissy Van. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode. So you've all seen the good old sidecar on a motorcycle. They're a head turner. They're cute as hell. And they get added to a bike to make room for another rider. And adding a sidecar transforms a motorcycle into a radically different vehicle. Therefore, a radically different ride. A three-wheel adventure, though, still beautiful and exhilarating in its own right. It's a challenge and it's a commitment in space, expense, flexibility, and performance. And adding that addition to your ride in life, in our case as women, that's called motherhood. We talked in a past episode about this, about choosing to not have children. But what about the choice you want to have children? And then what does that look like there afterwards? We know society puts all sorts of pressures on what motherhood should look like for women. And for years, portrayals of the epic journey weren't exactly raw and honest, or at least it wasn't the whole story in its many peaks and valleys. So we're thrilled one of our favorite moto moms, Hayley Wight, is joining us today. Hayley's a badass Triumph rider who has paused her riding on the kickstand, along with her career as a sales operation manager in the tech world, to focus on raising her beloved one-year-old son. So on today's episode, we're talking about the emotions of such an identity shift, the highs and the lows of the importance of women opening up about their real experiences. We do understand any conversations around fertility may be triggering for some. So if you feel like this may be the case for you, we encourage you to just hit skip, pause for another day, and we'll catch up with you with some laughs in our next off-road for next week. This is your motivation.
Well, we're so pleased to have you. First of all, as you heard at the end of the intro there, truly we understand that this can be a difficult topic for a lot of people. So with heartfelt expression, no offense if you haven't hit skipped and you think it's going to hit you a certain way, please feel free to do so. But I do think it's fascinating that us at the Motovation, both Lori and I, child-free by choice, and it's a conversation for another day, but there's this huge divide even happening online between those two parties at the moment, which I really hope one day goes away, because I think it's important about understanding there is not one choice more valuable or more perfect for an individual than the other. We should be honoring both as something to be celebrated in our lives, both which comes with its own difficulties, both which comes with its own joys. So with all that said, we're focusing on your journey today, Hayley. So tell me about how you started to realize this was something that you were ready to invite into your life.
Interestingly enough, I didn't always know I wanted to be a mom. It actually kind of came to me late in life, or I don't even know like when is right, but I wasn't the kid or the, like in my early 20s, I didn't expect, or I was still on the fence. I'm probably even more so in that no camp. I was like, no, like I'm doing my thing. And I think a lot of that came from a little bit of a thing that had been drilled into me that if I hadn't done it already, I probably wasn't doing it. You know, like my mom had kids,
right,
or me, when she was 22. And that was sort of where I grew up, small town. A lot of people had kids early, that kind of thing. And I was focusing on doing life. So I was like, that's probably not happening. And it kind of hit me really hard when my brother had his first son, my nephew, Freddie. And I saw that love that came from it and heard my brother talk about it and see what happened. And then when I went and I met Freddie, and I was like, oh, I think I want to be a mom. And then and it kind of grew from there. And then within like a couple of years, that was it. I knew, I was like, no, like this is something that I want to do. And I know that if I don't do it, I feel like there's something missing. And that wasn't to say that I didn't think I couldn't be fulfilled without having a child. I still think that people that say that to other people, I think it's ignorant, it's offensive. It usually comes out of the mouths of men. And it drives me absolutely insane, because it's relative to what you find fulfillment in. And Also, I don't think you should ever take something that lightly as well. Like being on the other side of it now, I'm like, like interesting. And then so at the time, I was in a long-term relationship and having that conversation around children and deciding ultimately it was what I wanted. That wasn't going to happen in that relationship. So that was a difficult thing to navigate as well. I had to make a choice. I had to either choose me and my potential offspring in the future, or not doing it and keep being with the person that I was with at the time. And I was like, no, I think I gotta do this, and went out at a relatively, like, as they called me throughout my entire pregnancy, geriatric stage of life.
Holy
Right. That's right.
Yeah, me and my geriatric pregnancy.
Holy shit.
So many things. And of course, like, my now fiance is one of the sassiest humans I've ever met, which sang a lot in the company that I keep, and just loved, like, geriatric, that word, grabbed onto it hard. Like,
Yeah, it was a party from then on.
I was like, oh man. Yeah, you don't get any early bird specials or anything for being an old lady pregnant. It's not.
What a ripoff.
And like, to be clear, Hales, you are how old?
When I got pregnant, I was 36. Yeah. Something like,
oh, you geriatric soul.
Yeah.
So,
That means if I got pregnant, I'd be like in the full blown, like, elderly. What would I even be considered?
it's brutal. I was like, oh man, like maybe my hips could shatter now, like maybe it's something to do with that. But
They're like, ma'am, we are about to bury your ovaries.
yeah, like,
Already had the service prepared.
definitely way more wrinkles now, all of the things. But yeah, the geriatric pregnancy thing was like, wow. But yeah, and then I just took a little break, started like figuring out what I really wanted. And then just based on learning from that, I was like, okay, I got to meet like-minded individuals that also want the same thing. And then met Jeremy, who very much wanted kids. And Jeremy has always known he wanted kids. So that was like kind of interesting as well. Like me coming in and like some of the conversations that we have, like, because I still now to this day, I'm like, I question it. I'm like, do you think we made the right decision? Like all that sort, like, like, oh, did you ever miss it? Like, are you sure you want it? Like when I was fully pregnant, I was like, are we sure? Are we sure we want it? Like, we're doing this? And like, yeah, like, and when I have days when I doubt myself or like the journey or anything like that, it's like, he's very centered in it. He's always wanted it, always wanted multiple children, always a thing. And I think sometimes I still revert back to that. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing what I wanted, but it's still relatively newish and it's working out.
What are some of the moments that you found have kind of surprised you the most about, and whether that's a challenge or whether that's been, your most joyous moments, but what are some of the, even like two things that you'd say was one of the more challenging shocks and one of the more like euphoric shocks that have come with parenthood, motherhood?
I think one of the most challenging was I didn't understand or know, and I've never seen anybody talk about it beforehand or anything, that I would be completely rebuilt as a human through having a child. And that came with different aspects. It came with losing who I was, finding new parts of me, putting them all back together, and then living this new life, this new purpose, almost like this new human that I became. Like, I did not expect it, and I didn't know it was a thing. And that through this past year has been extremely tough, or good, and like it's been tough. Yeah. And I think one of the most euphoric things, and I still think about it to this day, and I can't help but like it just fills me with this weird sense of joy. And it's going to sound quite cliche, I feel like, but the moment that Jack came out of me and they put him on my chest, and the way he smelled and the warmth that he came from and everything, it was unreal. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he'd just come out of my vagina and he smelled amazing. Like, it's
you have potpourri in her
thing. Yeah. Like, I don't know what I was cooking him in, but like, I was like, holy, and just everything about, there was something so, and it was like, that's all I remember of that moment. Like, just, I remember seeing like this weirdly red arm, and he was on me, and just his smell and the warmth of this tiny human. And that was like, still to this day, I wish I could go back and smell it again. It's so strange, but
life seasoning.
yeah, I was like, what was in there? That moment was unreal.
Well, I want to dive a little bit into the rebuild, because I know that this has been, I mean, you're still in the thick of the journey, but from us knowing you personally, there were a lot of moments where you're like, why don't we talk about this more? Because this is one of the most magnificent rides of your life, but a lot of people only share one roadmap. And if your map doesn't look like that, you start to feel or question if something's wrong with you. And we know for fact that is terribly incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about pregnancy. And for a bit of context for listeners here, you were going through this at a time that had added challenges to it through the pandemic. So pandemic pregnancy, when your social life is drastically reduced, you have a partner that's not always even allowed to join you to appointments. So talk me through the mindset journey as you went through pregnancy.
Pregnancy was awful. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. And I think that was a difficult thing, and maybe led to a lot of the struggles that I went through. Is I found it hard, and I didn't expect to find it hard. I expected everything that we're shown on TV, on social media, on everything, the cute pregnancy maternity dresses and the bump and hair and I'm
like
glowing,
when we do
and I'm
and then you like stand in the mirror with that, you bloat yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, this is how I look pregnant. And you're like, no, it's not. That's not. There's many things that come along.
No, it's brutal. What I didn't know about was like, I'll get so much more hair than I've ever had before, and not just on my head.
Yes,
I
that's
will
one.
get, like, my boobs are going to do weird things, some great things. Like, some of my pregnancy boobs were great, but my nipples were weird, and all this stuff was happening. Stuff is coming out of you at all times, like the heartburn, the changes in your body, the hormones, the mental, like, the first trimester, I was so ill, and it was so brutal. And many women, pregnant women, go through that, and it's hell. And then second trimester, you kind of, if you're lucky, you feel good in your body. The nice hormones are you're not big and uncomfortable yet. I think I struggled with that being in COVID. It was so isolating. Being pregnant, I was considered high risk with COVID. So there was a high risk to me and a high risk to my child if I contracted COVID, was what I was told. And so up until, getting vaccinated and all of this sort of stuff, it was like, you have to be extremely careful. And it turned me into a completely paranoid person. I became so...
I believe it.
I became so concerned. I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to get so sick, and I could lose the baby and all of this sort of stuff. And I've got to be careful. And it's not like you're given like a shit ton of information. You're just given this is the risk. So, steer clear of everything and everybody and don't do things. And I was like, but
from a medical professional, right? Like it's that person that's on their other side of it. And like, if they're telling me that, then this is, I have to take that at complete face value sort of thing versus them checking necessarily a box of like, I have to give this new mom a heads up. So you're already in this state of like, I don't know what to expect out of just pregnancy.
Yeah.
And try and ride that. And then medical community, while you're in isolation, is like, be as scared as possible. And you're like, check, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't do this, don't do that. And I was pregnant in 2021. So it was when we kind of had that weird, we're coming out of it. Oh no, we're right back in it. We're coming out of it. We're right back. It was so many ebbs and flows. And I started to see through that a lot of people were starting to get some semblance of life back. People were choosing like their own adventure based on the risks that they were comfortable with. And I couldn't do that, or I could, but I was told that I shouldn't, and I was wrong. And I was so torn between, okay, do I just take the risk and then get sick and do what I used to do beforehand, or do I play it safe? And that was hard because that pushed me further into isolation. I started missing out on things. I was watching everybody else do like things, or even just the highlight reels. My partner was still going out and golfing and hanging out with friends and going to work and things like that. And I was doing nothing. Like even at times my own family didn't want to see me because they were like, no, we're playing it super safe. And I was like, please just visit me. Like, please. Yeah. And it was tough. My family, like my mom and my brother and everybody were on the other side of the world, and that was completely shut down and no chance of being able to see them. That affected me, I think, a lot more than I thought it would. And I actually fell into some perinatal depression through it. I had some really dark days during being pregnant. I was in a very dark place, and it was really hard. There's so much that you see about pregnancy and expectations that we put on ourselves as women that choose to have children, and women in general. But I expected to fall pregnant, have a great time being pregnant, carrying this new life, like this like privilege, and I just didn't feel that. And then I felt like, I wasn't around my friends. I wasn't celebrating being pregnant. It was like, it wasn't even a thing. Like I was just pregnant, and weird stuff was happening to me. And I felt like I was already failing as a mom because I wasn't enjoying the journey. And I was worried about, does this mean that I'm not going to be a good mom? I'm not going to connect with my child. Like maybe I'm not cut out for this. I didn't know for a long time, and maybe I chose wrong. Like, how the fuck do you know? And it was hard. And anybody that knows me knows that when I'm struggling, I tend to shut down and go very silent. So like I hid it. I did it under the radar. I didn't let anybody know. I stayed out, and then things started, like my insomnia and things like that got really bad. And Jer started to notice like, hey, why are you sitting in the dark at the dining room table at 2 a.m? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just uncomfortable, And then it all sort of came to a head one day. I was driving downtown, and I sobbed the whole time. I was just in the car and I was just sobbing. And Jared gone away for a weekend to Squamish, and I just called him and I was like, I'm not okay. I was like, this is too far. Something's not right. And he was like, okay, like, what do you need? Like, what can we do? And I was like, I don't know. Like, maybe I think I need help. I need to talk to somebody. I can't just keep going through this. Like, what if it escalates even further type of thing? And I reached out to therapy, and I started going to therapy and talking through a lot of it and just figuring out, and like, oh, you know what? Like, being pregnant is a thing. It is a big deal. There is a lot going on. And that's when I started to realize that there's a lot of shit that people don't talk about. And there's a lot of things that aren't socially acceptable to talk about in pregnancy. And I felt angry. I felt like I'd been misled, lied to a little bit, that society had led me to put this expectation on myself that this was supposed to be natural and come easy. And as soon as I fall pregnant, I will be reborn as a mother and everything will make sense. And that is not true. And there's so much that needs to be shared and openly talked about, and so much pressure that's put on women, put on moms, put on, like, you know, even like earlier on, you talked about the social media battles between people with children and people who choose to be child free. And it's like, this is fucking stupid. Like, you think that we're all sitting here just trying to validate our own decisions, because really society and essentially the patriarchy has made us think that we have to. And there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. People that have children wonder every day if they should have had children, if they're doing it right. People that are child free by choice sit and wonder if they should have had kids, you know, if all that stuff that we're hearing is right. And we're all doing the same thing, just on the opposite sides. And we can actually support each other so much in it, because it's not us that are the problem. It's something so much bigger than that.
You said it so honestly and so beautifully. And like, first and foremost, thank you for just going there, Hales, because that's part of every of these really hard experiences in our lives. It's not because they're not worth it. Whatever road you choose, whatever road you feels right for you. But having children is no joke.
No joke.
At least if the thing of it is that when you're going through those challenges, is that what makes it harder than it has to be is believing that what you're experiencing isn't correct, or is just only true to you.
Yeah.
Or you're the exception, or, you know, it's because I'm doing something wrong, or I never should have been here, or all those different things.
Yeah.
Because when we have just the honest truth of it, then we can go through the challenges, at least knowing we're not alone in them.
You start to, you know, like I started trying to just seek out the information that I needed to receive. You know, I was like, surely other people feel like this. Like I am not, newsflash, I'm not the first person to birth a child. I'm also not the first non-geriatric young person to, you know, have a child and go through this shit.
One thing that I'd love to hear though, because you talk about for so long going through that phase where, and I think a lot of us do this when there's struggle in our life sometimes, is we fight almost admitting it to others because there's a fear over admitting it to ourselves to a degree. And then it gets so out of hand sometimes on the pendulum swing that you start to not even be able to visually know how to clamor out. So the minute you have that call with your partner and then subsequently are able to speak to it as well in therapy, in those early moments, how did it feel to finally say, I need help and I feel like things aren't right here?
Yeah, I think I didn't admit it for so long because I ultimately felt like I was failing at something that I shouldn't be doing. And I knew that it would worry my partner, Jer, because I'm carrying his child and I'm telling him that I'm struggling carrying his child and he doesn't know what that means. And I think I was afraid because I felt like I was going to be judged. Like, oh, what do you mean you're not happy about it? You know, you wanted this, like, fuck off. So I was like, it was that pressure really held me back for a long time. And maybe you're just hormonal. And I was like, I am, but also that's not the issue. And then when I started to open up and just say the words, like, I'm not okay. I need help. I need to figure out what is going on. And then to talk to somebody and hear this is normal, like not normal, like you're not doing anything wrong. Like, this is okay. Like, this is something that happens. Like, what's great is that you've recognized it. That was like, I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing the right thing. Like, I don't need to be embarrassed about this. And sometimes, like, that's kind of who I am. And I tend to do that a lot, is I will be struggling with something and I will be so hard on myself that I'm struggling with something. Like, get your fucking shit together, Hayley. Like, you're better than this. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, figure it out. And then I'll admit it. I'll have that weight lifted off. I'll start talking. I'll start doing the work. And then I come out and I remember the fucking badass that I am. And I'm like, okay, like, let's figure this shit out. Like, how are we doing this? And also, let's talk about this out loud a bit more. Like, let's be honest. And as soon as I start doing that, that's when I start to feel like myself again. I'm not a quiet person. I do not go quietly into the dark night. I will go out screaming. And that's what I started to do. Like, I started to talk to people. I started to say it out loud, like even to people that I knew would be shocked by it, you know, my mom, my dad, friends in general, like, and just say things out loud, and was generally met with support and kindness. And that just really started to help. Like, and I'm not by any means like, once, I think I was maybe like 4 or 5 months pregnant when I finally admitted that something was going on, maybe even later than that. It didn't make the rest of my pregnancy journey wonderful. I was still very much like, get this thing out of me, but it helped. I was able to talk things through, share some of the load, and try and figure out what we do going from here. And also plan a little for postpartum, which is a whole other topic. But, you know, it's like, if I feel like this now, there's this big thing that everybody tells you about, which is postpartum depression and anxiety. Like, surely that's going to happen. And not necessarily is it connected, but I was like, fuck, I should probably make sure I'm figuring tools out to get this in place. And yeah, so I just started chipping away at it.
I love the language that you use there about sharing the load.
Yeah.
You can't carry all that shit on your own.
We're not meant to. And I don't know why we've been made to believe that we should, like, especially in, you know, it's very prevalent in lots of aspects of life, but in motherhood as well, it's almost like your success as a mother is tied to how much you can do by yourself. And it was never that way. Like, we're the only generation of parents that in civilization that are doing that. Like, they don't do that in other cultures. You know, you've got aunties and grannies and grandparents and uncles living together, helping raise families.
Oh, in China, for a full month, the grandmother moves in with the family to help with transition. And it's all about taking care of the mom who's recovering from a very serious physical change.
Yes, like, there is a lot going on, and you're not sleeping, and sleep deprivation, good Lord, like, and you know, your body is messed up, you're not sleeping, you're going through so much. And then, you know, and then 2 weeks later, your partner goes back to work and you're just at home with this baby that you're supposed to know how to keep alive. And it's like, and that's it. And you're just like, all of a sudden, all the support that you had when you were pregnant just magically disappears, and you've just to figure it out. The hardest part, you've just to figure out. Like, it's insane to me.
The big push is always, at the end of the day, has come back to, you know, essentially money over humanity. Mm-hmm. We've lost scope of like what we actually need as human beings to be high functioning, to be healthy, to have real quality of life and real value. And what we need is connection to humans and support. And, you know, I was just listening to something the other day talking about how, especially Westernized society, we see, you know, older people are as elderly, geriatric, but elderly rather than elders. And it's those different things in which we're constantly told that we are separate from one another, and we're separate from, you know, this experience that is life, and that we come from a state of ego and representation. And so everybody is trying to say like, okay, well, I don't want to look like a failure or less than, so I have to present this version of myself because that's what has value. That's what, you know, and we need to get people back to work because we need to keep the, you know, industries going, and none of it is working. We are as sick as we've ever been. We're as disconnected as we've ever been. mental illness is out of control, all those different things. And so it's one of those things is that first and foremost, like you just said, of going back to that sharing that load, sharing that experience. You said it didn't suddenly magically get easier because I was talking about it. But what it did was it allowed the space to say, what I'm experiencing is very human and very okay. And that the more I speak to it, the more people that are coming in to then become a village, to show up and to support. But, and two, like knowing someone else's experience, whether or not it makes you uncomfortable in that moment or not, because you will get that person on the other side sometimes too, that, comes with their own projections or their own experiences or their own pushback or discomfort in what you're saying. But think about even down the road, if they're in something similar or the same, and they're going to remember that vulnerability and that honest moment. And that's going to allow them to feel, or even plant the seed to know that like the next time someone comes and shares a vulnerability around them, if like, this is a real thing, this is a real pattern, maybe, this is people's real experience to the experience that they're just, shooting up on Instagram, that sort of thing. But it's that we're not separate and we're made to think that we are, and we're just not. And we thrive off of community connection and having real, honest, raw experiences and actually talking about them.
Yeah. There's so much power in just being heard sometimes, So like much. When you just talk to somebody and they just listen, and then, something as simple as just being like, I'm glad you told me, or it's going to be okay. We'll figure this out. And even if you don't even figure it out, just hearing that, it makes you feel so safe. And it's so helpful. It's just the purest form of kindness, I feel like. And it's so simple. And we all have that ability to give that to people. Just letting people be heard, feel seen.
It's exactly how you say, Lori, about everything being separate. And we're that's all very much done on purpose. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. There are about 1 million distractions that disconnect us, and a lot of forces that are out there that are disconnecting us. And so it is about making that space for each other and for showing up. What was it like for you as you made the transition into motherhood? As you kind of alluded to there were concerns of what might be heading around the corner. So how was that shift for you?
So I had Jack. Spoiler alert.
Had a baby.
I had a baby. And we came home, and honestly, I felt amazing. Like I don't know what it was. Like, first of all, I was very lucky in my labor and delivery experience. And I just want to hold space for people that go through birth trauma, because it's a thing. It's horrible. And, treat it with the same way you would treat any traumatic event. But I was very lucky, and ended up having, once I was on all the drugs, having a great time. Up until that point, not a party. That is, holy shit. And literally so much shit. I will say, if anybody wants any labor tips, don't eat a McDonald's when you're right after you go into labor. And definitely ask your, and honestly, just go with the flow. Don't be, just trust your gut.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. But so we had a great delivery, and that came home from the hospital, and you were just kind of doing it. I had a baby on my boob every 3 hours, but it was going relatively okay. I wasn't having any massive problems. Jack would sleep for 3-hour stints. So during the night, I was awake every 3 hours, but it didn't feel as hard as I expected it to feel, because he would eat, fall asleep, I'd put him back down, and I would fall asleep, and he would wake up, and that type of thing. And I felt great. Like I wasn't in like a ton of pain. I wasn't super uncomfortable. My midwives did a great job of stitching everything back up. I took so many laxatives because I was terrified about that first poop. Like I was like, oh my God, what if everything falls out? Yeah, I was out and walking around after like 3 days, and like I was really good. And then it all went to shit. To be frank, about 6 weeks, I started having lots of issues breastfeeding. And there is a very strong breast is best culture in society, and it is everywhere. And I am not to say that anybody's journey is better than the other, but when you're struggling with one side of it, the last thing you want to see is everybody or hear is breast is best. Because ultimately, if your boobs aren't working and that's supposed to be your entire function as a mom, the one thing you're supposed to be able to do is feed your child from your body, and you can't do that, you will feel like a crushing failure. And you will also, because you're now a mom, you will put the well-being of your child before you in every sense. And you will do it to the point that you will crush yourself under the load of expectations. And that's what happened with me. I was not able to feed Jack properly. I was not feeding him enough. My breast milk wasn't giving him enough nutrients, or it was giving him things that would mess with his stomach and he would be in pain. Things like broccoli. Like, fuck me, right? I ate broccoli. I'm a terrible mom. Like, it was brutal. It was like, and then it was, okay, now I can't eat anything. I can't eat this, can't eat that. So I'll just eat saltines and water and, feed a human from my body and expect me to be okay physically. I felt like I had to make my breastfeeding journey work because I compared myself to everybody that breastfed and made it look so easy. Like, I would see it all over social media. I'd even see it with friends of ours that were still breastfeeding a year into their journey and hear them talk about how much they loved it and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, this should be more, like, this should be better. Like, I should be good at this. And I remember that sort of culminated again with like me, like, I remember I was really disappointed in the postpartum care that I received in that regard. I asked multiple times about formula and I was told to like hold off, like breast milk is best, and go deep into the forest and forage for these exotic herbs and try drinking this and try doing that. And you know what, like, once you've tried feeding him from your breast, power pump every 10 minutes so that you can like increase your supply, but also, keep trying to feed your baby and go about your regular life while pumping every fucking 10 minutes, like, don't sleep, pump. Again, it was just more expectation. And it was also like, you're not really listening to the problem. Like, I'm telling you that Jack needs to eat every 90 minutes to 2 hours now. And he's obviously still not getting enough. He's still jaundice and he's not supposed to be. My supply is dwindling. I'm obviously not feeding him enough. Like, I need to know about supplementing. And the information was not given to me. And until I took Jack to his first doctor's appointment to get weighed and like talk about shots and all that sort of stuff. And my GP, who I love, was the first medical professional to just start with a question, to be like, is he on formula or breast milk or 50-50 or whatever, and make it seem so normal that my baby might have formula. And I was like, oh my God, can I give him formula? And he was like, yeah, like, of course you can. Like, give him formula. And I was like, he said that to me and I was like, oh my God. And like, up until that point, my mom came to visit and was staying with us, and I was a formula baby. And that was the thing. I never had any judgment about formula. I didn't care. I didn't think formula was bad or anything. I just couldn't let go of this idea that I was failing so early in this one basic thing. And even Jer was like, just give him formula. Like, this kid likes to eat, he'll eat. And I was like, no, like I'm in control of this. Like, I can do this. Like, I got this. And, you know, they would tell me the same things. Like, you're not failing. It's like, just feed him, just give him the formula. Nobody cares. Like, it's like, I care. I can't give up on this. Like, no, like I will win. And for some reason, going to that doctor's appointment, and that it changed everything for me. Like, I was like, okay, like I can give him formula. But I still also couldn't give up on the breastfeeding journey quite yet. There and then in the doctor's office, in front of the doctor, I gave Jack some formula, and Jack fell right asleep, and he slept for 4 hours. And I was like, oh, my baby's happy. Like, look at that. That's a happy fed baby right there. As soon as we started giving him formula, his jaundice went away. He started gaining weight. He started doing this. But I was also very much at the time, we were still in COVID, and there was all this talk of antibodies. Well, if your baby's on formula, they're not getting the antibodies. They're not getting this. And I was like, I have to protect my child, like, at least until I get another booster shot. Because if he gets COVID, like, what's going to happen? He's a baby. What's going to happen if he gets COVID? It's like, okay, we'll keep breastfeeding, keep giving him those antibodies, keep doing that. It was just not working. And I would keep pumping, and I would keep trying. In the middle of the night, I would try and feed him. It was rough. And then one morning, Jer was working from home. He was in this room, and I was outside and in the living room, and Jack was napping or something. And I was sitting on the couch, strapped to a pump, just and nothing was coming out. There was like the drips, and I was sobbing, like just sobbing, and not for the first time either. Like, this was this constant. And Jer came out, and he just saw me, and he was like, what the fuck? Like, and I was like, they're not. And I was like, nothing's coming out. Like, I don't know what to do. And he just came over, and he's like, let's turn this pump off, like baby steps, like, let's take this pump. And he turned it off, and he just hugged me and told me, he's like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to keep trying to do this. I was like, but I feel like I should be. And like that, I just felt like such a failure. Like, I took pictures as well, like a couple of times, of just like days where I'd just been crying nonstop. Like, I just couldn't stop. I was crying in the shower and this, and I was like just taking photos just to remember. It's like, this is like, you shouldn't be like, remember that day when you were like this, like, we need to move away from that. And that's when, like, I talked to Jer, and he was just like, he's like, you don't need to keep doing this. Like, it's okay. Just leave breastfeeding. You haven't failed. He's had breast milk for 3 months. Like, you've done great. Like, just, he's fine. He's happy. He's great. Like, formula's fine. I was like, okay, we'll do it. We'll move to formula. And we moved to formula. And then I feel so bad about it now, because I had almost like formula shame around it. Like, I hated pulling out formula when we were out and around other people with babies, especially people that would be breastfeeding. And I was like, ugh. And I remember one day we were at like a thing, and I was giving Jack formula, and there was a couple of kids there, and like, it had nothing to do with me, but their kids were like older, and they just were having a conversation around like when they were going to stop breastfeeding. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Like, I can't be a part of that conversation because I'm a formula mom type of thing. And just like really felt, and it was nothing fucking to do with me. Do you know what I mean? But that was like the seed of doubt was in me, the comparison game of, oh, well, they're better moms because they're still breastfeeding their kids, all of these things. It was just always comparing myself to things that I wasn't doing. And it was hard. And then it was lonely as well. Like, I didn't really, like, I'm the first in our group to do this. And I moved away and I was like the only mom, and I was just trying to figure it all out. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing half the time, and really hard. Like, and I was definitely suffering from some like postnatal depression. And then my postpartum anxiety really decided that it was its turn to shine. And
Take the baton.
Oh, he was like, you know what, guys, I'm here.
I was like, I'll show you a real torment.
Let's start this party. Let's get it going. Like,
you thought you had problems before. Let's make some up and play them on repeat.
Electric circuit. It was, that's been the hardest and the longest part. I didn't really know what it was like to be an anxious person. Like, based on where the journey I've been on, I don't think I was an anxious person before. Like, I definitely had some social anxieties and some things around that, but this is insane and has been insane. Like, the anxiety, intrusive thoughts, like things that I did not know were a thing that have come up that hit you like a ton of fucking bricks. And it's been hard. It's hard on me. It's hard on my relationship with my fiance. It's hard on my relationship with grandparents. It's hard on my relationship with my son. Like, sometimes I'm just like, let him be a baby, but what if he eats poison? It's like, there's no fucking poison around. Like, relax, you know? But don't tell me to relax, because I will come at you like a spider monkey. Like, yeah, it was like, it was crazy. And like, that's what I was sort of like mentioned earlier on, this like rewiring. Like, for the longest time, I thought, like, I was like, okay, I had this baby. I was ripped apart physically and mentally, and then I was put back together, and I was put back together wrong. I'm not Hayley anymore. Where is she? Come back. I want her back. I want her back. I know for no uncertainty my fucking partner wants her back. I don't want to be this person. I want to be chill. I want to enjoy my son. Like, I don't want him to get a bonk, but I want to be able to handle him getting a bonk.
I love this raw, honest story, but so much of what you're sharing, and that we're so grateful that you're sharing, because I know that this isn't something only experienced from yourself, but most of what you're sharing has been what has been felt so internally, where externally you have been raising this most amazing son and providing this beautiful influence and creating this amazing imaginative world for him to discover and celebrating every milestone and smiling at him every moment that he wakes up. And I know that. And that's the part that your son will know and see and love. And obviously he has so much love for you as his mom. But that's why this conversation is so important, because for so many moms, I'm sure there is this internal mental struggle, because it is a complete identity shift.
Yeah.
And we do have these massive weights of expectations placed on women, on moms, that it needs to look a certain way. And if you're not having it that way, that you are fucking wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what's fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's only adding to this perpetual feeling inside of people that they don't have it right. And you're just kind of, how unfair is that for each other? We need to have more honest conversation.
Yeah. Like, the unfair aspect, like, is one that I wish we talked about, like, more. Like, and I know, like, amongst like us and our group of friends, like, we're all powerful women, like, and we kick ass. Like, even if it's just basic things, like, you know what, hey, you know what, you showered, got dressed, you worked out, you're kicking fucking ass, you know? Like, it doesn't always have to be these momentous things that we're doing. Like, celebrate the big, celebrate the small. But the expectations that are put on different people, and obviously today we're talking about motherhood, but the expectations that are put on moms is so unfair. But it's like, do all this, but also remain the same. How is that fair? create life, give birth to life, take care of life, but be the same person that you were 5 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever. Like, it's like, I can't be all of that. Like, I just can't. I'm not two people. I'm one person. And now I'm almost 1.5 persons, because I have this human that I have created and am so attached to and is a part of who I am. I can't take on all of that load, but that's the expectation. Be her, be a good mom, but be a great partier. Be a good mom, but also work full time and kick ass and climb the corporate ladder. Be a good mom, but still enjoy all your hobbies with all that free time that you have. Be a good mom, but don't be tired. Be a good mom. Don't talk about it being hard. Do the work. Love doing the work. Like, no. Nobody likes changing shitty diapers. Nobody likes having all of their clothes covered in spit up all the time. Like, but instead of being like, you know what, maybe we need support, what we do is we make a joke about it. Like, oh, here's a Halloween costume, tired mom look. I'm like, you know what? No, like, why don't you go watch your kid and let her have a fucking shower?
It's like when they say when the dad's watching the kids and they're like, oh, that's nice, he's babysitting. No, that's being a parent. But
we've seen a big turn in that, in like, you know, the uptick in regards to that becoming more balanced has come a drastic, you know, difference. That said, there's so much further to go. Like, you'd be shocked at the amount of sessions that I have to make sure to request that the dad is there as well, because they just assume that. And I'm like, well, this is for both.
I wish I was shocked.
Yeah, no, I know. But I understand where it comes from, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, she's the one that does the kids stuff mainly. I come in and obviously I'm a parent and I help. But but it's kind of thing of like, you're missing it. And I understand that it's still so substantially fed as a society. Like you said, that whole, like, you got to be a little bit of everything, you know, and obviously both gender roles have their own absolute issues when it comes to the expectations that are placed upon them. But
yeah,
fuck me, what they're placed as far as moms go. I just, you know, it makes me angry for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I just, you know, there's so many moments I just want to shake the other partner and just say, like, step into their shoes for just a week fully, and you will see everything different if you just took on all of the tasks. And then also have your actual, like, your hormones change, which they couldn't step into that, but like add that capacity in there that you're literally you know?
Yeah.
And
like, you know, and then like, you can be with a human all day, but still feel lonely, you know, or you can be giving your all to that tiny human all day to be the best, and you're working so hard, and they slap you or throw things at you or don't want the food that you make and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, oh, you know, like, trying so goddamn hard here, you know, and like, we're trying hard, like, and we're just constantly striving for something, but we don't know what we're striving for. And like, these things that we deem as failures, you know, like, oh, my kid didn't eat today. It's like, oh, I'm a bad mom because my kid didn't eat. Like, no, maybe your kid's just being a jerk today. Like, you know, like,
they're just being human, having their human experience, just like all of us.
Why is it always my fault? You know, like, it's things like that. Figuring out like your relationship with your partner through all of that is also something that nobody talks about. You know, you see it on social media that everybody's got this perfect family, and they, you know, they're doing the funny TikToks, husband and wife and all this kind of stuff, and everything's happening. And you're like, there's a lot of shit going on behind the scenes. Me with everything that's going on as a stay-at-home mom right now, and then him with everything that's going on at work, and then coming home to a family and a fiance that's like, oh, like, take this kid, you know, figuring out the balance between all of that. And then also coming together to try and figure out what our relationship is now and how that's changed and how we can focus on enjoying time as a family, but then also enjoying time as a couple. But then you look at this person that you had a child with and you watch them become a dad, and it's the most amazing thing. Like the way that you love somebody before and the way that you love them when you see them with your son it's mind blowing. Like, and Jack sleeps most nights now, didn't last night, but sleeps most nights. And it's like, you'll be sitting there in the dark, the world's asleep, it's raining outside, you're like trying to settle your crying baby, and it's almost like you're like, I see you, mama, you know, like,
right.
There's other people out there going through the same thing. And I'm like, just that little thought, I'm like, maybe somebody's doing that for me right now too. Like, you know,
that's a really beautiful thought of just that, of like, when you're sitting in those really hard moments, it's kind of like expanding your mind and spirit and soul really to like all the other people that are sitting there across the globe doing that exact thing for that little human that they love so much.
Yeah.
That they wish that in that moment that maybe that wasn't what they were doing, but they are, because that's the love that they have, and that you're not alone in it.
Yeah. And it's a weird thing, because it'll be like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I just fall asleep and then Jack wakes up and he's crying. And I'm like, I don't wake up like, oh, wonderful, I'll go help you. Like, I wake up like, come on, I'm trying 100%. To sleep, you know, but you make the bottle, or you go in and you hold him and you feed him and you're like, you're so cute. Like, I'm a year postpartum, and I feel like in the last like month and a half, maybe, being generous, like I've started to feel like I've come back together and I feel good. I feel like I'm kicking ass. I feel like a great mom. You know, there's still things that we struggle with. We still got there, but I don't feel this crippling doubt all the time. You know, you start to feel more comfortable in your skin as a mom. It's like, and I feel good, like, and it's great. Like, and he's amazing. Like, I think that was something that I maybe fought with a lot early on too. Like, oh no, I got to get back to being old Hayley instead of embracing mom Hayley. And now I'm just embracing being a mom and enjoying that and focusing on that. That's my part-time in life right now. Like, I'm not going to get to do this forever. Like, he's growing up so fast, and I just want to inhale it all as it's happening, because it's great. Like, he's just fucking awesome. Like, and I made that, you know, like, what? The source of joy that he brings to my life is unreal. I can't explain it. I can't describe it. Like, but it's awesome. It's really the most toxic relationship I have.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one important thing to note, especially for people listening, and particularly if you're a mom thinking like, cool, you just spent a whole hour and a bit talking about the hard stuff. And
that's what this episode was for, to be clear.
That's the point.
I'm like, just so they know, we're not like, where we're just like, we're going to talk about the wonderfulness of motherhood. Here we go. And then we're like, well, it turns out there's nothing good about. No, it's like, that's
awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to end on a brighter note, which I think is where Chrissy's going. But
and that's exactly, I wanted to acknowledge that was the point of this episode, to talk about the things that aren't ever talked about, and acknowledge, of course, there's this whole other side that has, and it's been so magical to watch you go through and become this amazing mom and this beautiful role model for Jack. And we know as aunties, we're so excited to see him grow and thrive and have all the love. But I just felt it was important to at least say that before we lead in to our motivation maintenance. And I did give you a little heads up of this, Hales, but what's a little tool that you would have for moms out there that helps you through some of those tough moments?
I would say some of the things that I do, and they're probably cliche, but I say to myself out loud all the time, all the good things that I do. Like, I'm a great fucking mom because I fed my baby milk this morning. I'm a great fucking mom. Like, celebrate the small wins, like 100%. And remember every day that it's okay to find it hard, because it is hard. Do not compare yourself to what you see in any regard. Like, you're the best mom for your human, and don't let anybody let you think otherwise. Lean on your community, or find that new community that helps support you in that journey that you're in right now. Like, I love you guys, and you guys have been amazing, like amazing aunties to my little kiddo. Like, I love it.
But
you need to find people that are in the same stage of life as you. It's the only way that you can have that sounding board, almost, like, to be because I can talk to you guys about everything, and I do, but if I say to you, hey, does your baby spit up when you give him this? You're gonna be
I'd be like, Gavin, all the time.
Yeah. Like, that makes sense, you know?
And just wait till you talk to him about breast milk. You'll have to check out an early off-road to understand that reference.
I was actually there for that conversation. So wonderful. It was great.
Well, lastly, we like to end with a quote. So do you have a quote for us, Hayley?
I do. I actually have it written down because I can never remember them.
No, we don't remember a single one. We read them
never, not once.
Okay. What is the greatest lesson a woman should learn? That since day one, she's already had everything she needs within herself. It's the world that convinced her she did not.
And that is your motivation.
You've just listened to the Motovation Podcast with your host, Chrissy Van, and me, Lori Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motovation Podcast and visit our website at themotovation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.